Hello beautiful people, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, you're welcome, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for always stopping by. In today's video, I'll be teaching you how to cut a pencil straight skirt pattern with hip padding allowance and this beautiful net design. So if this sounds like something you're interested in, please subscribe, like, comment, share, and let's get started. Welcome guys, so this is my fabric and this is what I'll be using for my skirt pattern. So now, after folding your skirt into two, you measure 2 inches at the lower part. This will serve as your hemming allowance or your turning allowance, as the case may be. So just roll it out so that it can be visible. Then from the length, you measure your skirt length. Because I'll be cutting a 3/4 gown, that is why I am placing my tape rule in this manner. So I'll just measure the length from the length of the skirt to my waist measurement where the joining will be. So I'll just mark it at the upper part over there. Then I'll add 1/2 inch seam allowance to it. So if it is your skirt, you just measure your skirt length at this point, then you add your hemming allowance or your turning allowance to it, then you roll it out so that it can be visible. So those are the lines, the 2 lines, that is the 1/2 inches. So after the 1/2 inches, you place your tape rule again. You know I'm cutting a gown, then you measure your hip length. This is my hip length for my gown. So if it is a skirt pattern, you just measure your hip length, which is usually between 8-9 inches depending on your size and depending on your measurement that you've measured. So after this, you measure your waist measurement divided by 4. You add your sewing allowance, which I'll be using 1.5, and my dart allowance 1 inch, that's 2.5. So here you measure your hip measurement divided by 4. Hip measurement divided by 4. Because I noticed that the folding was not enough, so I have to refold. So the same thing I did earlier on, my waist measurement divided by 4, my joining allowance with my dart allowance, that's 2.5 inches. So at this hip length, so I measured my hip divided by 4, my joining allowance, then I'll be adding 1 inch as my hip padding allowance. If you are adding 1 inch as your hip padding allowance, that means that you are adding 4 inch extra to your hip. But if you're adding 1/2 inch, that means you are adding just 2 inches. I don't know if you get that. Is whatever inches you're adding times 4, that will be the extra amount you're adding to your hip. So now I measured what I have at this hip area without the hip padding allowance, then I just transferred it down just to roll it down. So firstly, I'll be drafting this pattern as if I'm drafting just for a pencil skirt, then I'll just be connecting the hip padding later. So if you know how to draft a pencil skirt, just go ahead and just connect the lines like this. Then after connecting, I usually go down by 4 inch or 5 inch at my hip area. So it's from there I will be able to curve the hip. I don't know if you get. It's from there I'll be able to curve the hip, and for me to curve the hip, I'll just measure 1 inch. 1 inch at the lower part. I've not done that yet. I'm just trying to explain some things here. So for this hip padding allowance, I'm trying to connect the waist to the hip padding area. I'm just connecting it down. Just follow me as I'm doing it. Just connecting it like that. Then for me to draw the curve of my pencil skirt, I told you after my hip length, I measured 4 inches. I measured 4 inches. Then towards the end of the skirt, I'll measure 1 inch. So is that 1 inch I'll be removing at the lower part. I'll roll it straight to some points, just with a straight line. So at this point here, I'll just land it. I don't know if you can see what I did here. So that will give it a pencil skirt effect. So that's what I have. So that line that I'm touching is a basic pencil skirt pattern. So what I'm just doing extra now is just the hip padding allowance. Just the hip padding allowance. You know we want to extend our hip padding. So from the hip length, you just connect it to the new line you've drawn. don't know if you get, you draw it to the new line of the pencil skirt. So that is what you will do. From this side you measure it. So the distance between for this hip padding from the hip length, it is 8 inches upward. I don't know if you get an inch, 8 inches downward. So from there you just connect it to the 1 inch you added at the hip area. Connect it, that will give it a curve. That is after drawing your pencil skirt pattern. You measure 8 inches upward, 8 inches downward, then connect it to the 1 inch you added at the hip area. So that is the hip padding allowance. So if you are not padding your hip, you just skip that part. You skip the part of the hip padding whatsoever. Then the next thing to do now is to cut our pattern. Please note that we are cutting the second line, that is the line that is smaller because of the pencil skirt effect. If it was to be a straight skirt, I will cut the line before the new line I drew. So because it is a pencil skirt, it has to be pencil at the lower part. So this is what I have cut out. This is what it looks like. So the first line is the normal, like the basic pencil skirt line. So the extra line is just the hip padding allowance, if you get, and it is 1 inch, 8 inch upward and 8 inches downward. That is how I could get that curvy effect. So I'm just trying to trim it out properly so that I can get a good measurement, so that my measurement can be accurate. So that's what I have. So for the back bodice, it is quite simple. The folded skirts, the folded front pattern, you just place it at the back, also folded. Then you add your slit allowance or your zipper allowance at the back. So I'm adding 1 3/4 inches because I'll be adding a slit and I want it to overlap very well. So I'm adding 3/4 at that side there. Then I'll just cut out the pattern. I'll cut out my fabric. Then I'll open up the zipper allowance at the back. I'll open it up. So after that, this is what it looks like. So now I want to measure my darts. So my dart is my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus half inches, which is 4 inches. I'll just be cutting it like that, just not up to half inch, so I can know. Then my slits and my dart length will be like 5.5. So this is the pattern drafting. So I went ahead to cut my lining to my front fabric and also my back fabric. And for the net that I'll be adding, the net design, so I went ahead to cut the net. I will explain the measurement shortly. So I'm just trying to lay it on the fabric. You have to lay it properly and pin it. You know this net is kind of stretchy, so that you don't make any mistakes. So you place it on it like this. So for you to know the measurement where it will get to, where it will start from, if you are sewing a long skirt, you know it will get to the lower part. But since I'm not sewing a long skirt, so it will just end, it will also end at the length of the skirt. So I'm trying to pin it down. I will explain the measurement shortly, just keep watching. So these are the ruffles I will be adding, and it is 3.5 inches wide, and the length depends on the availability of your fabric. So now just assume your pattern was folded just like this, and your hip length, that line up there is my hip length line. Then I went down by 1.5 inches. That's the highest part of this curve. You know this, it has a curvy effect like a cycle. So the highest part is 1.5 inches after my hip length. Then I curve it down with a suitable measurement. That is, I use about 4 to 5 inches, I can't remember. Just make sure it has an arc, just like an arc. So if the arc is okay by you, you just go ahead and make the point, then you cut the net. So This is the ruffles after folding it at the edge. So I'll be placing it on the net. That is after I've stitched it down. So I went ahead to stitch it down. So I'm trying to measure what I have left. I have 2 and a half left. I told you it's 3 inches, so I use 1 inch to fold it in. Then I'll just be placing it on it like this. We're placing it at the upper part of this net design that I've attached to the skirt. So I'll be sewing it just like this, so that whenever I flip it, it will fall on the sewing. So that's just what I'll be doing. So I'll go ahead and sew. After sewing, I've top stitch, and this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like, and it looks really nice. So the next thing you just do is to place your lining on it, and whatever way you know how to fix your lining to your skirt, you go ahead and do that. And you iron. You do the same for the back bodies. Then you sew your skirt. So that's just basically it. So this is me after folding my lining to the front, after doing the dart, after folding and everything. This is what it looks like. This is the front. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for subscribing, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.